Unemployment has ticked up in South Africa. Releasing the quarterly labour force survey, Statistics South Africa reported that the official unemployment rate rose to 33.2% in the second quarter. Now, that's compared to the 32.9% registered in the first quarter. For more on the jobs data, we cross to SABC News Economics editor Tshepo Mongoai in Petoria, who is with Statistician General Risenga Maluleke. Good afternoon, Tshepo. It's over to you.
Thank you very much, Mfundo. Of course, there are a lot of drivers and moving parts when it comes to South Africa's unemployment rate, which has been hovering at just above 29%. And of course, it's continued to move either marginally up or down in that particular band. And of course, for more, we are joined by Statistician General Risenga Maluleke. Thank you very much for your time. In terms of second quarter GDP, what would you say were some of the highlights of this particular number?
One of the things we are seeing is that obviously the number of those that are unemployed has increased. So we went up from 8.2 million to 8.4 million. And definitely that has increased the unemployment rate by 0.3 of a percentage point from the 32.9% that we recorded in the first quarter to 33.2%. But because this is the month of August, we actually zoomed a lot more in relation to women. When we looked at the unemployment rate of women, it's relatively higher, but particularly that of Black African women. On the formal or narrow side, it's sitting at 40.2%. So if you compare 40.2% versus your 33.2%, it's relatively higher, about 7 percentage points. And on the expanded side, you are talking about 51% of women, Black African women, unemployed. And that translates into about 5.9 million, almost 6 million Black African women who are in the working age are not in employment. And none of the other population groups does come to a million. The colored population group comes to about 466,000. And indeed, the white population groups comes to about 110,000. And the Indian Asian population group is the lowest. So these are things that came out. Of course, we have also seen the graduate unemployment increasing a bit, as you would expect that beginning of the year, people are coming out of school, they go out, look for employment, and those who don't get employment, they consider going back to school. But some, especially particularly graduates, some were still writing their exams beginning of the year. So when supplementary exams, and when they finished, they now went into in search of jobs.
In conclusion, out of 10 sectors, we've seen only 4 that performed well. Just take us through those contributors.
Well, we can see that the one that led the most was sitting at about 88,000. And of course, that was largely in the sector of finance. And indeed, when you look at mining, not mining, construction, for example, it also contributed in relation to the big gains that we have seen on the jobs. But community and social services has seen losses. I said it was finance. It was not finance. It was trade. Trade led with 88,000 jobs. And of course, when you look, the provinces that led the most were your Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. And of course, the losses were seen most in the Western Cape amongst the provinces.
More concerning is a number of young people who are not in employment, basically who are not economically active, and we've seen that number continue to be quite high.
Well, we know that previously we were sitting at 3.8 million not in employment, education, or training. We are now sitting at 3.6 million, the change of about 200,000. However, young people not in employment, education, or training in that age cohort, 15 to 24 years, has relatively remained above 30%, in the region of about 35%, 36%.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. That's the Statistician General, Risenga Maluleke, giving some of the highlights of the second quarter unemployment numbers that we released, and of course highlighting that high unemployment still affect mainly women as well as young people, particularly ages between around 15 all the way up until to 34. That's where you're seeing massive increase in number of unemployment. And of course, we've also seen that provinces like the Western Cape, there we've seen an increase in unemployment, although they've maintained a number that is much below the national average. We've also seen Gauteng showing some significant improvement there in terms of creating jobs. But overall, about 19,000 jobs that were created, and of course 140,000 jobs that were lost in this particular quarter under review. It's back to you in studio.
Well, certainly a very worrying figure when we look at that 140,000 jobs that were lost in the previous quarter that will now contribute to further social ills, but most certainly will now be getting reaction from politicians on just these numbers and what some of them who are in government intend to do. Thank you very much, Tshepo. That's SABC News Economics editor Tshepo Mongoai speaking to the Statistician General, Risenga Maluleke.